I'm at KAUST, which is the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology in Saudi Arabia. And it's a new university. It's been around for, 5 years or something. It was built from the ground up out of the desert and is just an amazing facility for us to do our work. We have this incredible facility that's right next to these reefs, and we can collect our samples, freeze them, process them in the lab, do everything we need on site.
We're here as part of the Global Coral Microbiome Project, which hopes to survey corals from all over the world and study the microbes that live on them and try to understand how these communities have diversified along with corals over hundreds of millions of years.
As far as the collections go and what we're doing right here at KAUST, we're trying to get a good, diverse set of samples that we feel confident in our scientific procedures that we've collected them in. And I think that's our ultimate goal for these couple of weeks, is to get out there to the reef, to learn as much as we can about the local species, to collect as good a set of samples as we can.
Being able to come here specifically to KAUST and to access the Red Sea from the Saudi Arabian side is a really unique opportunity that you can't just it's one of the few places in the world where you can't just kind of get a visa and go on your own as a private citizen. And it's really incredible to be able to come here.
The Red Sea is the northernmost tropical sea. It's a very warm sea. It's a very young sea. So what does it mean for molecular biologists? We can essentially follow the evolutionary trajectories that organisms, or what organisms did actually in order to survive here or to come to this ecosystem. So in a way you can relate to the Red Sea as a future ocean scenario, right? So it's a very warm ocean, it's a very saline ocean, and if we look at what organisms do here to live in these or under these conditions, we can relate that or extend that to other oceans.
What we saw underwater was just this amazing wall of colors and shapes and diversity. The comparisons with an Amazonian rainforest and some of these reefs underwater are perhaps, if anything, undersold. And you could look at an area maybe this big across, and you could spend weeks just studying all the details of the corals that live there encrusting one over another, and the smaller animals that then take refuge within the habitat created by those corals, and just trying to take in all those different relationships. Part of the question is whether different types of corals have unique microbial communities that they've co-evolved with that maybe contribute something to their survival and might affect how corals fare with the changing climate or in response to other local stressors like nutrient pollution or overfishing. So part of the idea is that corals from different spots may have different microbial communities that are driven by the reef where they are, if maybe what's in the water is really critical. Or it may be that these very diverse corals each have their own unique set of microbes. And if we can understand what those microbes are and their function in coral health, it might help us predict which corals will do better or worse with, for example, climate change and ocean acidification. Or it may even help us try to engineer solutions.
Although they cover a very small area, they are actually very important in terms of the larger food web, as I think it has been determined or estimated that at least 1 in 3 marine organisms is reliant on coral reefs at some stage of their life cycle. So that figure in itself, of course, is very important. But in terms of the areas where coral reefs actually persist, they are also structuring the coastal areas, and that is not only important to the marine realm but also to the people living on the shores of coral reefs.
So all animals that we've been able to study have very intimate symbiotic relationships with microorganisms, and corals, we think, are no exception. Part of what we want to try to understand in this project is how, across the immense diversity of corals, whether there are specific types of microbes associated with different coral species that might help to dictate how they respond to some of the environmental changes that have been imposed on them. So for example, are there particular microbes that allow corals to more easily resist pressure from nutrient loading, for example, or to better compete with macroalgae? And conversely, are there microbes that are responsible for outbreaks of coral diseases, many of which still are quite mysterious in origin and we don't really understand?
As humans, we essentially rely on these ecosystems. So the importance of coral reefs is actually very easy to explain. First of all, they are iconic. They are the rainforests of the oceans, and it's a value in itself to conserve biodiversity. But on another level, they also provide nutrition to coastal people. There's a value in them for tourism. A lot of coastal nations actually rely on that, and they also provide shore protection. So there is numerous services that they provide to humankind. And there's a number that other researchers followed up on. So an estimated 500 million people actually depend on the presence of functional coral reef ecosystems, and the annual value, if you want so to say, exceeds $375 billion. So I mean, that's a very big number.
I'm always struck by the thought when diving on coral reefs that, these products of, again, hundreds of millions of years of evolution, these reefs are really artifacts of that process. We don't need to, try to explore extraterrestrial civilizations to find life that's strange and different and fascinating. And to lose those before we've even hardly begun to really understand what makes them tick would definitely be a tragedy. And of course, layered on top that sort of almost spiritual aspect of reefs, there's also the fact that they're just pragmatically hugely important for rearing juvenile fish. There are a lot of communities that really depend on those reefs, and I've seen a lot of those communities. And so finding solutions that can help conserve the reefs, and I think is really important, both in terms of sort of our heritage as humans, and also in practice, helping out a lot of people.